The ruins stretched out under a sky painted with fading light. Broken towers leaned like tired giants, and crumbled stone arches cast long shadows over the silent ground. The air was heavy with dust and the faint hum of forgotten machines. It was a place most avoided, a place said to be cursed. Yet a lone figure walked there, calm and steady. He was wrapped in a dark cloak, a hood covering his head, hiding his face from the world. Each step echoed softly against cracked stone. Each movement careful, deliberate. He looked like a wanderer, but something about his silence carried a weight. High above, on a shattered wall, eyes watched him with suspicion. The watcher was no ordinary traveler. She was a warrior of the alien clans. Tall, strong, armored in plates of silver and blue, her blade strapped across her back. Her people had long warned of humans, dangerous and strange. And now, here one was, walking through the ruins of her ancestors' city. She leapt down from her perch, landing with a thud that shook the dust. Her blade gleamed as her hand rested on its hilt. The human stopped, his hood still shadowing his face. Neither spoke. Silence stretched between them, heavy with tension. "Take off the hood." "Human," she commanded, her voice sharp and cold. The words echoed against the ruined walls. The human did not move at first. He stood there like a statue carved from stone. Only the faint wind stirred his cloak. Whispering across the ruins, her eyes narrowed, anger mixing with unease. Why did he not obey? Why did he not even flinch? Most would have trembled before her. She was a warrior feared even among her own kind. But this human was different. His silence felt like defiance. It made her grip tighten. On her blade, she circled him slowly, her boots crunching on broken stone. Her gaze scanned his form, trying to find weakness. But the cloak hid too much, the hood covered too much. The unknown burned in her mind, making her more restless with each second. "You do not belong here," she said, her tone colder now. "These ruins are sacred, they are not for your kind." Still, the human said nothing. Only the tilt of his head showed he heard. The stillness made her heart beat faster, though she would never admit it. The ruins seemed alive that night. The wind whistled through hollow windows like whispers of the dead. A broken tower creaked as if groaning at the weight of time. The warrior felt the old stories pressing at the edges of her mind. Stories of humans who came to these lands long ago. Stories her people had chosen to forget. "Take off the hood." She shouted again, louder now. This time, the human stirred slowly. He lifted his hand toward the hood. The motion was calm, unhurried, like he was in control of everything. Her hand tightened around her blade. Her knees bent slightly, ready to strike, yet inside her chest something trembled. Why did this moment feel heavier than a simple command? Why did her voice falter when she thought of what lay under that hood? The silence broke at last. The human spoke. His voice was low, steady, almost too calm. "Are you sure you want to see?" he asked. The question was not a challenge, but it carried weight. It felt like a warning, and her breath caught in her throat. For a heartbeat, the ruins seemed to lean closer. The broken walls, the cracked stones, the faded towers, all waiting. The air grew colder, and even the wind seemed to stop. The warrior's pride demanded she answer, demanded she stand firm. "I am not afraid," she said. Though her voice shook at the edges, her eyes locked on him, unwilling to look away. He nodded once, as if her answer was expected. Then his hand touched the hood fully. The fabric rustled softly, like the whisper of destiny itself. Her legs felt weak, though she forced them to hold. Her throat was dry, her grip sweaty against her weapon. Something inside her screamed that this moment would change everything, and yet she could not stop it. She could not turn away. The hood began to move, lifting just a little. The shadows of his face started to break apart under the dim light. The warrior's heart hammered in her chest, each beat louder than the last. Her pride told her she was in control, but her trembling knees betrayed her. The ruins watched in silence. The night held its breath. The hood was about to fall, and nothing would be the same again. The hood was still in place, hanging between shadow and revelation. But the warrior's command still burned in the air. She stood tall, silver and blue armor gleaming under the broken light of the ruins. Her shoulders were broad, her posture unshaken, every movement a declaration of authority. She was not just a fighter. She was born into a bloodline of leaders. Her people raised her with stories of victory, of dominance, of the weakness of outsiders. And above all, she had been told one thing from the day she could walk. Humans were dangerous. Humans were deceivers. Humans could never be trusted. The human before her seemed to mock those stories without a word. He stood still, patient, calm, as if he had nothing to fear. Even when her command cracked like thunder, even when her hand rested on her blade, he did not flinch, he did not bow. He did not show fear. That alone made her chest tighten with unease. She tried to hide it. Her kind never showed weakness. She straightened, lifted her chin, and let her voice sharpen like her blade. "You stand in sacred ground," she said, each word firm. "These ruins belong to my people, to the blood of warriors, not to trespassers wrapped in shadow." Her words carried the power of tradition, of command, but somewhere inside she feared they were not enough. The human tilted his head slightly. The gesture was small but unsettling, as though he judged her, measured her, weighed her worth in silence. Her jaw clenched, her pride burned. She stepped closer, her boots crushing fragments of ancient stone. "You will answer me," she said, her voice deeper now. "Who are you? Why do you walk these ruins? And why do you hide your face?" Still the human was quiet. Only the whisper of his cloak moved in the cold wind. His silence felt heavier than her words. It pressed against her like an invisible force, and it made her blood heat with frustration. Her blade was not yet drawn, but her hand gripped the hilt. Every muscle in her arm was tense, every nerve ready to strike. She had fought beasts in the wild, soldiers twice her size, mercenaries with hearts full of rage. None had ever made her feel this mixture of anger and doubt. And yet this human, without showing his face, without lifting a hand, was making her tremble inside. "Do you think I will ask again?" she hissed, her voice carrying across the broken street. She moved to circle him once more, her steps steady, deliberate, like a predator. But in her chest, her heart was no longer steady. It pounded, faster and faster. Every shadow seemed alive. Every crack in the ruins whispered old secrets. And always her eyes came back to that hood, that cursed hood that covered more than a face. It covered truth itself. The human spoke at last. His voice was calm, lower than she expected, not the voice of fear, but of something older. "You want me to take it off," he said softly. "Then know this, once you see, there will be no turning back." Her body stiffened. The words were not a threat, not even spoken in anger, but they carried the weight of something final, something unchangeable. Her throat felt dry, but her pride would not allow her to step back. She laughed once, harsh and sharp, though her laugh trembled at the edges. "Do not try to frighten me, human," she said, her tone biting. "You are flesh and blood, like all others, and when I give a command, it is obeyed." She was the commanding warrior of her clan. She was the one others followed in battle. Her pride demanded he kneel. Her training demanded his obedience. And yet, in the depths of her heart, she already sensed a storm building. This was no ordinary wanderer, no simple trespasser. This human carried something beyond her understanding, and she feared that once the hood was gone, the world she knew would crack like the broken towers around them. She tightened her grip on her weapon. Her voice rang out once more, loud, firm, proud. "Take off the hood, human," she said. But this time her heart whispered a question her pride could never say aloud. What if she was not ready for what she demanded? The ruins seemed to breathe with her words. The air grew colder, the silence deeper. Even the shadows seemed to lean closer, waiting for what came next. And though she stood tall, though she wore the armor of her people, the trembling in her knees betrayed the truth, that she was not as ready as she pretended to be. The moment hung in the air, the warrior commanding, the human silent. and destiny waited between them, wrapped in the folds of a simple hood. The ruins had grown darker as the night stretched on. Shadows spread across the broken streets like ink on old parchment. The air was heavy, every breath laced with dust and the faint metallic taste of forgotten machines. The warrior stood only a few steps from the hooded human, her heart beating faster with each passing second. She had given the command, not once but many times. And yet the human resisted, not with words of defiance, but with silence that cut deeper than any blade. He stood unmoving, a statue wrapped in shadow. The quiet stretched longer and longer, until even she began to hear her own doubts whispering. In the silence, the warrior narrowed her eyes, her hand still pressed to her weapon. Her people had warned her since childhood. Humans were cunning, humans were strange. Humans were never what they seemed, and this one, cloaked and hooded, fit every warning she had ever been told. She shifted her stance, circling him once again. Her boots crunched over shards of fallen stone. Her gaze traced his form carefully, searching for signs. A weapon under the cloak, armor hidden beneath. Anything to explain his calm, but there was nothing, no weakness she could see, no fear she could taste, only the steady stillness of a man who knew something she did not. "Why do you hide?" she demanded, her voice breaking the heavy quiet. Her tone was sharp, but inside she felt her own words echoing back like questions for herself. Why did his silence unnerve her so? Why did the hood feel less like cloth and more like a wall between them and the truth? The human tilted his head again, slow and deliberate. It was the smallest gesture, yet it sent a chill down her spine. It was as if he saw through her, measured her strength and weighed her spirit without ever speaking. She gritted her teeth, refusing to let him see the crack in her pride. The ruins around them whispered with the wind. The broken arches seemed to lean closer, listening. The shadows clung tighter to the walls, as though waiting for a revelation. And in the back of her mind, the warrior could not shake the stories of old, stories her elders had hushed, stories about humans who once walked among gods, stories about faces marked with power that could bring worlds to their knees. Her suspicion grew with each heartbeat. This was no wanderer, no lost scavenger. Something about him was deliberate, purposeful, like every step he had taken into the ruins was planned. He was waiting for her, or perhaps waiting for this exact moment. The warrior's voice hardened, though her chest ached with unease. "You are not what you seem," she said slowly. "You stand before me with no fear, in a place where no human should walk. Tell me why, or I will cut the truth from you." Her blade half slid from its sheath, gleaming faintly in the dim light. The human finally spoke, his voice soft, calm, and steady. "Truth is not something you cut free," he said. "Truth reveals itself when the time is right." Her breath caught, her anger flaring hotter. He dared to answer her command with riddles. He dared to speak as if he was the one holding power. But her suspicion grew heavier, because even his riddle carried weight, like every word came from someone who knew more than she could imagine. "You play with me," she spat, her pride boiling. "You think silence and words will protect you. But I am not one to be fooled." Yet even as she said the words, doubt wrapped tighter around her heart. For the first time in years, her knees felt unsteady. Her voice had wavered, her grip on her blade slick with sweat. She hated it. Hated the way this human twisted her certainty. Hated the way the hood made her imagine more than what she saw. Every shadow beneath it seemed alive, every secret heavier than her armor. "Take it off," she demanded again, her voice shaking, though she fought to steady it. "Take it off, and show me what lies beneath." But her suspicion whispered louder than her command. What if she was not ready for what she demanded? The human stepped forward at last, just one step, but it felt like the ruins themselves shifted with him. The air grew colder, the ground seemed to hum faintly, and the warrior's chest tightened as if the world had suddenly become smaller. "You are afraid," the human said, not unkindly. "Your blade trembles in your hand. Though you hide it, you command me. But you already know the answer. Her pride screamed against his words, but her heart admitted them true. She was afraid, not of his weapon, not of his strength, but of the unknown beneath that hood. Her suspicion had grown into something larger. It was no longer just about what he hid. It was about what she might discover in herself once she saw it. The ruins seemed to lean closer once more, every broken wall, every fallen tower, listening for the unmasking. The warrior clenched her jaw, forced her voice steady. "I am not afraid," she said again, though the tremor in her knees betrayed her. Her suspicion was no longer a whisper, it was a storm, and it demanded to be answered. The hooded human only stood there, silent once more. The moment stretched like an unbroken thread, and she knew with every beat of her heart that when the hood finally fell, nothing would remain the same. The night pressed heavier on the ruins. The broken towers and shattered arches seemed to lean in closer, as if they too waited for the moment that would decide everything. The warrior's breath was shallow, but her stance stayed proud. Her blade still ready, her heart, however, pounded like a drum in a war march, faster with each second. The hooded figure refused to move. She had demanded, she had commanded, she had shouted, but none of it had broken him. He stood still, calm, patient, like a shadow carved from stone. And that silence was worse than any open defiance. It made her doubt herself, it made her question her own strength. At last the human moved. It was slow, deliberate, as if he controlled the pace of the world itself. His hand rose to the hood, the fabric rustling faintly in the cold wind. The warrior's body tensed, her hand gripping her weapon so hard her knuckles ached. The air felt colder, the silence heavier, as though the ruins themselves were holding their breath. "Are you certain?" the human asked softly. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but it carried a weight that pressed into her chest. "Once. You see, there is no return." The words struck her pride like a blade. She was a warrior, daughter of warriors, a commander of her people. To retreat now, to admit fear, would be to shatter everything she had built, and yet her knees trembled. Her mouth was dry. Something inside her screamed not to push further. Something deep in her blood warned that this man was not what he seemed. She forced a harsh laugh, trying to drown her fear. "Do not test me, human," she said, her voice sharp though it shook. "At the edges, you are flesh and bone, like all others, nothing more. Show me your face, or I will take it from you myself." The human gave no argument, no resistance. Instead, his hand pressed deeper against the edge of the hood, and slowly, painfully slowly, he began to pull it back. The warrior's heart raced. Her chest rose and fell with each unsteady breath. Every second felt stretched, every heartbeat louder. Her pride screamed at her to stand tall, but her body betrayed her with trembling legs. The hood shifted, and shadows slipped away like melting night. A lock of hair glimmered faintly, streaked with something unnatural, not the color of any ordinary human, not the shine of mere flesh. Her grip tightened on her weapon, though she dared not strike. The air around them stirred, as if the ruins themselves were waking. Her mind raced with the stories of old, stories her elders told in whispers, never meant for young ears. Stories of humans who bore marks of the ancients, humans who were said to carry the fire of worlds, humans who could destroy armies not with weapons, but with what they carried inside. The hood slid further, and she caught the first true glimpse of his face. Her breath caught, her body stiffened, for his eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Not the glow of reflection, but the glow of something alive, something powerful, the kind of light that did not belong to mortals. Her knees nearly buckled, though she fought to stand. Her pride told her to look unshaken, but her heart screamed with terror. Those eyes were not just human. They carried scars of power. She could not look away, trapped by them, swallowed by them. They reminded her of storms, of burning suns, of ancient gods long thought dead. The human's expression was calm, almost sorrowful. There was no arrogance in his reveal, no pride in showing what lay beneath, only inevitability. as though he had known this moment would come. As though everything led here, the warrior staggered a half-step back, her blade still in her hand, but her grip weak. She tried to speak, but her words faltered. What could she say? What could she command? Her strength felt meaningless against those eyes. Her pride shattered like the towers around her. "You wanted truth," the human said quietly. "Now you carry it." The words sank deep into her, heavier than her armor. She had sought control, demanded obedience, but instead she found herself trembling before him. Her legs were weak, her breath unsteady, and though she hated the thought, she knew her knees could give way at any moment. Around them, the ruins shifted again. The wind rose, carrying a low hum. Old machines buried in the stone flickered faintly. The city itself seemed to respond to his presence, as though it recognized him, as though it remembered him. Her pride shattered further. The warrior realized with horror that this was no ordinary human, no wanderer, no lost traveler. This was something older, something connected to the legends her people had tried to bury. She swallowed hard, but it did not steady her voice. Her heart pounded as if trying to escape her chest. The hood was gone now, the truth was unveiled. And though she still stood, though she still held her blade, her knees trembled so fiercely she thought they might betray her. What she had demanded was before her, and it was more than she had ever feared. The hood fell completely, and silence swallowed the ruins. The warrior stared, her throat tight, her chest heaving as if she had run a battle march. She had demanded to see, and now she wished she had not. What stared back at her was not simply a man, not simply a human, but something far more. His face was marked with scars that were not natural, lines that glowed faintly, etched across his skin like the traces of ancient fire. Each mark pulsed with a dim light, steady and alive, as if his very blood carried energy older than the ruins themselves. And his eyes, bright and steady, carried the kind of power no mortal should hold. They did not flicker like torches. They did not shine like metal. They burned with quiet, terrible certainty, the gaze of one who had walked too far and seen too much. The warrior's knees trembled openly now. She tried to steady herself, tried to lock her legs in place, but her pride was cracked, her strength broken under the weight of what she saw. This was no ordinary enemy, no trespasser she could cut down with her blade. This was something her people had whispered of, feared, and denied. "You," she tried to speak, but her words failed. Her tongue felt dry, her throat closed. The human, no, the being, did not answer immediately. He only watched her, calm and unshaken, as though her reaction had always been inevitable. The ruins around them stirred again. Lights flickered faintly in the broken walls. Machines that had slept for centuries hummed with sudden life. The air vibrated with power, subtle but undeniable. It was as if the city itself knew him, as if it had been waiting for his return. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought he must hear it. Her weapon felt suddenly heavy in her hand, useless, meaningless. All her training, all her pride, all her victories felt like dust before those glowing eyes. Her people had called humans weak, unworthy, prey, but this human shattered every word of that belief with his mere presence. "You wanted to see," he said at last, his voice steady, "and now you cannot unsee." The warrior flinched, not from anger in his words, from the truth they carried, for she could not deny it. What she had demanded was revealed, and it would haunt her forever. Her body betrayed her further, her knees nearly giving way. She forced herself to stand, forced her grip to tighten on her blade, but her heart knew she could not strike, even if she attacked, even if she swung. With all her strength, it would mean nothing. Her instincts screamed at her that this was not a battle she could win. Her voice broke free at last, sharp and trembling. "What are you?" she whispered, the words slipping out against her will. Her pride wanted her to roar, to command, but all that escaped her lips was a question born of fear. The human lowered his gaze slightly, his scars glowing faintly. "I am what your people tried to bury," he said. I am what they feared would return. His words cracked through her mind like thunder. Memories of old stories flashed like broken flames. Tales of humans touched by ancient forces. Warriors who carried the strength of lost civilizations. Beings who could change the fate of worlds with their existence. She stepped back without realizing, her boots scraping across broken stone. Her breath quickened, her chest tight. Her blade hung weakly at her side, trembling with her hand. Her pride screamed at her to hold strong, but the truth tore through. Her pride like fire through cloth. The ruins pulsed again, louder now. A faint light coursed through cracks in the walls. Through old carvings, it was not the warrior's doing. It was not her people's sacred strength. It was him. The city responded to him. The ruins obeyed him. The warrior dropped to one knee, not in choice, but in surrender to her body's weakness. Her pride shattered completely, her strength drained, her knees struck the stone. And she hated herself for it, but she could not fight the tremor in her legs, could not resist the weight of what stood before her. The human stepped closer, his cloak still brushing the ground. He did not gloat, did not smile. There was no triumph in his expression, only calm, only inevitability. You see me now, he said, and you understand. The warrior's head lowered slightly. Her eyes locked on the broken ground. She had commanded him once, had shouted orders with the authority of her people. Now she could not even raise her voice. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breath. Her heart a storm. She had thought herself the hunter. But now she saw the truth. She had never held power here, not for a moment. The unmasking was complete, and the truth left her trembling. Broken, she had seen what she demanded, and she would never stand the same again. The warrior stayed on her knees, her armor scraping against the stone. Her hands trembled though she tried to clench them into fists. Her chest rose and fell in unsteady rhythm. Each breath heavy with disbelief. Her mind shouted at her to rise, to fight, to reclaim her pride. But her body would not obey. Her strength melted beneath the weight of the human's presence. She had always been told her people were strong, that they were born warriors, destined to command the stars. Humans, she had been told, were lesser, fragile, unworthy of fear. Yet here she was, kneeling in the ruins of her ancestor city. Her pride in ashes, her body bowing before a human she could not conquer. The glowing scars across his face pulsed. Faintly, each mark seemed alive, carrying whispers of old power. The ruins themselves hummed in answer. Faint lights coursing through the cracks in stone. Machines long dead stirred weakly, as if awakening to his presence. The city remembered him, or perhaps what he represented. And the warrior knew deep in her chest that she had stumbled into a truth her people had spent generations trying to bury. Her blade hung limp in her hand. She wanted to raise it, wanted to prove her will had not shattered, but her arm was weak, her grip was failing. Even if she struck, even if she screamed, she knew it would mean nothing. Against him, her weapon was no more than a child's toy. The human stepped closer, each footfall echoing in the silence. He did not carry the air of a conqueror. No arrogance, no cruelty. But that made it worse. His calm presence stripped away the illusion she had built around her pride. It showed her how small she truly was, how fragile her power had always been. You see the truth now, he said quietly. His voice carried across the ruins like a steady current. Your pride is broken, not because I sought to break it, but because it could not stand against reality. Her teeth clenched, her pride fought desperately to rise, but the trembling in her knees betrayed her. Her head lowered slightly, and she hated herself for it. She was a commander, a warrior, yet in this moment she was nothing. Nothing but a trembling soul before something greater. Memories of her victories flickered in her mind. Battles where she had stood tall. Challenges she had overcome. Each one now felt hollow. Each one crumbled under the weight of those glowing eyes. She realized then that true strength was not what she had believed. It was not pride, not command, not the ability to strike fear in others. It was something far beyond, something she could not yet understand. The ruins responded again, louder now. The hum of machines vibrated through the air, dust shaking loose from the old towers. The ground beneath her pulsed faintly. As if alive, the city bowed with her, the ancient structures acknowledging the one who stood unmasked, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly small. "I am not your enemy," the human said, his gaze steady. "I do not seek your throne, nor your surrender, but you must see. The world is larger than what you were told, and your pride, as it is, will only blind you." The warrior swallowed hard, her throat burning with shame. She wanted to deny him, to shout that he was wrong, but her body betrayed her. Her silence betrayed her. She knew he spoke truth, even if her pride screamed against it. Her knees pressed harder into the stone. Her blade slipped from her trembling hand, clattering against the ground. The sound echoed through the ruins. Final and cruel, the symbol of her strength lay broken at her side, and she felt tears sting the edge of her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. "You mock me," she whispered, her voice low, cracked. But the human shook his head, his face calm, almost sorrowful. "I do not mock you," he replied. "This was always the truth. Your people feared it, so they built walls of lies, but walls cannot hide forever." His words cut deeper than any blade. Her pride shattered further, breaking into fragments she could never piece together. She had thought herself the hunter, the commander, the strong one. Now she saw herself as she was, a warrior trembling before a truth too great to deny. The ruins roared faintly, machines humming louder, stone trembling. The night wind carried whispers like voices of the dead, and she realized she was standing at the edge of something far greater than herself. Her pride was gone, her certainty gone, only fear, awe, and the weight of destiny remained. She bowed her head at last, not by choice, but by surrender of her spirit. Her voice was faint, broken. "What do you want from me?" she asked her. Pride was shattered, her strength stripped away. All that remained was the trembling warrior who had once believed herself unbreakable. The human did not answer immediately. He only looked down at her, his glowing eyes steady, and in that silence, she understood. Whatever he wanted, whatever he carried, it was not just about her. It was about the fate of all. Asterisk. The ruins hummed with power, the broken city alive again after centuries of silence. Lights pulsed faintly through the cracks in stone. Whispers of machines long buried filled the air. The warrior knelt on the cold ground, her blade fallen from her hand, her pride shattered beyond repair. Her breath came heavy, her chest rising and falling with the weight of a truth she could not deny. The human stood above her, calm, steady, his glowing scars pulsing softly in rhythm with the ruins. He did not move with arrogance. He did not stand like a conqueror. Instead, he carried himself like one who bore a burden too great. The weight of his presence pressed on her, but it was not cruelty, it was inevitability. At last he spoke, his voice calm and unshaken. "You demanded the truth, and now you carry it. But truth is not a weapon, truth is a choice." The warrior lifted her gaze, trembling, her eyes wide and filled with both awe and fear. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her pride was gone, and without it she felt hollow. Still, her spirit reached for something to hold on to, something to define herself again. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, the words slipping out against her will. The human stepped closer, the sound of his boots soft against the stone. The ruins reacted again, a low hum coursing through the ground. Even the shadows seemed to shift, leaning closer as if listening to his words. "I want nothing you cannot give," he said, his eyes glowing faintly. "But I will offer you a choice, one that will define not only you, but all who follow you." Her body froze, her heart pounding faster. "A choice," he had said, "not a command, not an order." The warrior's people knew only chains of duty, chains of command, chains of pride. But here was a human, a being of power, offering her freedom in a way she had never known. "You can rise against me," he continued. You can call your people, raise your armies, cling to the lies they built, and if you do, this city will crumble again, and your world will follow." His voice carried no anger, no threat. It was spoken as fact, as something already written. "Or," he said, his tone softer now, "you can stand with me, not as servant, not as prey, but as ally, and together we will face what is coming." Her breath caught. The words struck her deeper than any blade. To stand with him, to walk beside a truth so vast. Her pride whispered. Against it, her people's voices screamed in her mind. But her heart, her trembling heart, longed to believe, because for the first time, she saw her path clearly, not as a commander holding false power, but as a warrior who could choose her destiny. The ruins roared suddenly, stone shaking, machines humming louder, dust fell from broken arches, light streaked across carvings buried. For centuries, the city itself seemed to demand her answer, the hum of destiny pressing against her chest, against her soul. Her knees pressed harder into the ground. Her pride wanted her to stay down. Her shame wanted her to crawl. But his words, his presence, forced her to see beyond herself. Slowly, painfully, she forced her legs to steady. Her hands clenched into fists, not from anger, but from resolve. She rose. Unsteady at first, her body weak but her spirit stirring. Her eyes lifted to meet his glowing gaze. For a moment, she felt small again, trembling. But then she remembered his words. It was a choice, her choice. Her voice came, quiet but growing stronger with each word. "I have lived by pride, by lies, by the weight of my people's chains. But if I must choose, I will not walk in blindness. I will not deny the truth I have seen." The human inclined his head, calm as ever. The glow of his scars pulsed brighter for a moment. The ruins shook in answer. A low rumble, echoing like the heartbeat of the ancient city. "You have chosen," he said, his voice steady. "And in that choice, you have taken your first step beyond pride." The warrior stood fully now, her blade still at her side, but no longer trembling. Her knees steadied, her breath calmed. She felt stripped of all illusions, yet strangely lighter. She was no longer the commanding warrior bound by lies. She was something else now, something new. For the first time in her life, she bowed her head willingly, not from fear, not from defeat, but in respect. Her voice steady, she spoke the words that sealed her fate. "I will stand with you." The ruins erupted with light, the hum turning into a roar. Machines long silent woke, carvings glowed bright. The ancient city itself seemed to rise from slumber, as though her words, her choice, had unlocked what was waiting. The human's gaze softened, and though his presence still carried the weight of worlds, he gave her a small nod, almost human, almost gentle. "Then together," he said, "we will face what is coming." And in that moment, beneath the broken towers and the glowing ruins, the warrior's shattered pride became something greater. Not pride, not command, but resolve. Her fate was tied to his now, and destiny, once hidden beneath a hood, had begun to unfold.